Hey everybody, it's Ty from K2 Data Science and Engineering. In this video, we're going to scrape an entire category from the block. Let's dive right into the code. Now, I already have the code ready for you to scrape a category. Before we talk about that, let's look at a category and see if we can come up with some logic to scrape it. So now each category page is the same. If we go to the business page, you can see there's a grid of 3, and if you get to the bottom, if there's more than 12 articles, then it goes on to a new page. So if you're just looking at this, it's pretty simple, right? We want to go to this category page. Say we're just given this as the URL. We won't do all the categories, we'll just do one. But if we go to this page, what we want to do is iterate through the entire grid, right? We want to extract out each one of these cards, and then this title has the link to the actual article. So if we clicked that, this would go there, and the same thing like made in frame, that would go to the made in frame article. So to start off, we want to extract out each one of these cards and then extract out the link for each one of these articles. And then once we extract out the article, then we can run our parse page function that we created before to extract out all the content on the page. So for this page, we just extract out the articles and then run the parse page function. But one thing we'll have to do is we'll have to check if there are additional pages. We can check if there's additional pages by inspecting this section. So here we'll have a class of navigation on the bottom of the page, and then we'll have a list of pages as well as the next link. So let's take a look at, let's see which one of the categories doesn't have pagination. Okay, so workflow doesn't. So some of them don't, some of them do. I guess eventually all of them will. But for example, in this one, there's no class here, right? There's the page nav container, but then there's nothing in it. So here we have items in it, and here we don't. So what we can do is we can put in some logic, check if there's a page navigation section. If there is, then go to the next page. If there isn't, then move on, wrap up this function. We're done with the category. And it's useful to have that because then, for example, if we go to the next page, we can also build in some logic. Okay, there is a navigation section, but there's no next button. So that's what we'll essentially do. So once we get to the end of a category, if there is a navigation container, but there is no next button, then we're done with the category. So that's how we can, I hope that logic was clear, but that's kind of how you would build it if you were just looking at it before you wrote any code. Now that we understand what's going on, why don't we walk through the code? So at the top, I'm just going to create an empty list. It's called article store. So this is where we're just going to store the articles. And then we're going to have two functions. We're going to have our parse category, which is going to take our URL, and then we're going to have our find next link, which is the logic to find if there's another link. So let's run through the category, and then once we run into the next link, we'll explain how that works. So we just do a request with our URL and our headers, strip out the text, convert it to a beautiful soup object, just like we did before. And then what we're going to do is we're going to find our article cards. Now these are called cards sometimes in HTML, just the description of this. And so we're going to find all. So before we might have used only the find method, and the find just finds the first one that matches. Find all finds everything. So we'll basically have a set of all the article cards, and then we can just iterate through it with a for loop. And what we'll do is we'll find the title. So that's with the class post meta title. And then we'll just extract out the link from that title. So that's merely this. To extract out post meta title, then the link from the A tag, the link tag. And I've just put out a print statement so I can see what's going on when I was parsing. And then we run the parse page function, which we of course defined earlier, and then that will run all those extra functions to extract out the information. Once that page is extracted, we can append it to our article store. After we are done with all the articles on that page, we will run this function find next link on the soup object, and we'll return a variable next link. So what does that next link do? Well, it finds the bottom navigation. So if there is no bottom nav, then it returns none, right? So that's if there was no nav, like for example on this workflow category, then it'll return none. So if there was one, then it extracts out the links, and we extract out the last link. And the reason we extract out the last link is so that we simply get the next page. I'll go to a better example if we go to editing. So if we extract out the links, we're going to get about 4 or 5 links. We'll get page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we will get next. So we always want to extract out next. And the reason why we'll do that is if the link we extract, the last link, is equal to next, then we're going to find the next page link and then return that link. However, if that text is not next, for example, if it's 6 or 5, if it's on the last page, then we don't want to. We just want to return none. So for example, when we're on the last post-production page, it will run that find next link, and it will find a link, but the last link will be the link to page 6. So when we extract that out, it's going to give us the text 6, not the text of the word next. So in that case, we'll just return none. Now the if-else none logic is a bit scrappy here. It can be done a bit better, but it's more to simply just show the logic that's going on. So depending on what it returns, then our parse category function does different things. So for example, if next linked is not none, then we'll print the next page, just the link to the next page, then we'll parse that category, and then we'll run parse category on the next page, page 2, and then parse all the pages and so forth. And this function simply just returns none. Now the reason it does it is because we're just appending all the items to article store within that function, so we don't need anything out of it. It's simply just running the code within it. And it's the same with find next. If it isn't able to find a next link, it simply returns none. Alright, so if we wanted to parse the category here, we can parse the behind the scenes category. So we'll just put the link and then we'll run the function, and we're going to get some output. So we'll have every article we're parsing, and then once we run to the bottom of the page, it will tell us that it's moving on to the next category. So next page, or next page, yes. So here page 2, and then I believe there's only 2 pages in this category, so it should end soon. Yep, so it finishes. So now we can check the length and the first item in our article store, so we can see that we got 20 articles, and then this was the first item, which would be the gender and genre article. So that's all I wanted to show for scraping one category. Feel free to check the code on the GitHub repo. That's it for this video. In the next video, we'll tackle scraping all the categories of the blog and saving our data.